Part 64. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 631. Looking at this scene, Zuyun was angry and funny. He hadn't seen this kind of scene for a long time. However, listening to the words of these two people, it seems that sword cultivators are not welcome. But on the other hand, we can also know that the secret realm of the Book of Heaven is indeed as we heard before. Killing is not allowed here. Boy, suffer death. These two people were also straightforward and there was no nonsense at all. One of them used a spell right away, and a flame rose up and rushed towards Zuyun's face. Zuyun smiled slightly. He didn't even use the chaos sword. With just a slight movement of his mind, a water column rushed out of his body. The advantage of not using spells is that he can cast them faster. The water column comes from his water spirit bead. The water in the Shui Lingzu is all condensed and purified from the spiritual power in Lake Baipa. As a burst of water mist rose up, the flames in front of him suddenly disappeared. Zuyun also disappeared from the sight of the two of them. This isn't a sword cultivator. The cultivator who was using magic exclaimed, but he heard Zuyun's voice coming from the other side of the mist. Li Huo turns into a dragon. In an instant, 5 fire dragons broke through the mist and rushed straight in front of him. What a powerful fire aura, even stronger than mine. He couldn't dodge at all. Zuyun's Liwo curse was already proficient, and as his usual method, he was extremely skillful. The monk couldn't even say a word, and he was already seriously injured. At the same time, the high temperature brought by the Liwo curse dispersed the water mist again, revealing the frightened face of another monk. What about you? I'll also give you a chance to take action. Zuyun looked over indifferently and saw the monk swallowing his saliva and secretly looking at his companion who was burned to black coals. Not dead yet? Hey, what about you? Are you going to make a move? If you don't make a move, don't blame me for not giving you a chance. Zuyun's words interrupted his thoughts. When he turned around, he saw the old god Zuyun there, with his hands folded across his chest, and he didn't pay attention to him at all. The monk fell to his knees with a plop. Fellow Taoist, there is a misunderstanding. After saying that, he kowtows repeatedly. What a joke, they took action first and even a hair on their head was burned off. As a result, their companions were burned into black coals. If this happens, will I still be alive? Zuyun shook his head. He was tired of hearing the word misunderstanding. Is there any misunderstanding? I just heard you say, kill me and then strip me naked. Those who kill will always be killed. As you are in the Danja stage, you should have heard of this, right? Never heard of it? The monk had a mournful face. What he meant was that Zuyun also wanted to kill him. How could he dare to admit it? Never heard of it? Zuyun raised his eyebrows, then smiled and said, then, the big fist is the truth. There must be nothing wrong with this, right? Nothing wrong, nothing wrong. Fellow Taoist, please treat me as a fart and let it go. In order to survive, this monk dared to say anything. Dignity and face are nothing in front of life. I'm sorry, how can we, monks, still fart? After all, it's still the elixir formation period, and there won't be any turbid air in the body. These two people pose no threat to Zuyun at all. Zuyun can kill him anytime he wants. However, to keep this man alive, he actually wanted him to help explore the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. Fellow Taoist, tell me, why did you let me go? I am willing to give up all my wealth. The monk didn't know how to convince Zuyun, so he took out all the contents of his storage bag without waiting for Zuyun's response. Looking at those low-quality elixirs and some magic weapons, Zuyun curled his lips with disdain on his face. He almost forgot that there are also poor monks in the Peepa realm. But He suddenly realized something was wrong. Logically speaking, shouldn't those who enter the secret realm of the heavenly book be disciples of major sects? Judging from the net worth of these two people, they must be casual cultivators, right? So, where did they get the entry beads? Thinking of this, Zuyun's eyes narrowed and he asked in a deep voice, "Which sect are you from? And where did the entrance beads come from to enter this secret realm?" "This, fellow Taoist, we are just casual cultivators with such low strength. How could a sect take notice of us? Besides, entering a sect is not a good thing. It looks safe, but in fact we are selling out every day." Cool force. Rogue cultivator. Zuyun's pupils shrank and asked, "What about your entrance beads?" "We don't have the beads, and we don't know why, so we entered the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. Originally, we came to Pipa Prefecture to join in the fun, but for some reason, we suddenly appeared here. Our hearts I want to hear that the secret realm of the Book of Heaven is opened once every 1,000 years, and I can't help but kill people without anyone being held accountable, so I want to do some moneyless business." "You don't have a gateway bead?" Zuyun asked with eyes wide open, his face full of disbelief. If so, then why did he work so hard to grab a few entry beads? "Yes, that's right, there are no entry beads." Seeing Zuyun's reaction, the monk was frightened, but when he saw Zuyun thinking about something, he had the idea of escape. As for companions, who can save him? He made a prompt decision and quickly fled away into the distance while Zuyun was not paying attention. "Want to run?" Zuyun came back to his senses, snorted coldly, and with just a thought, the shuttle appeared in front of him out of thin air. He took a step in the air and stood firmly on the shuttle. At the same time, he raised his hand and held the Chaos Sword in his hand. The next moment, the Chaos Sword passed through the chest. Ahem! The monk looked down at his chest in disbelief. The black tip of the sword was not stained with a trace of blood. Not only that, the spiritual power in his body was also disintegrating crazily, rushing towards the outside of his body. The Chaos Sword is an immortal weapon that can kill even those at the nascent soul stage, let alone an ordinary Dan formation stage like him. Bump! As Zuyun pulled out the Chaos Sword, the body fell limply to the ground. Zuyun looked grim and turned back to the black charcoal body. Spare my life." Haitan spoke with difficulty. Zuyun said coldly, "Originally, I wanted to give you a chance to live, but you don't know what to do. Then I'll send you on your way." As soon as he finished speaking, Zuyun's eyes revealed murderous intent, and the Chaos Sword had already passed through his chest. The flesh turned red, and the gushing blood dyed the black body red. 2 casual cultivators died. Zuyun then put away the Chaos Sword and took out the folding fan. He gently fanned the breeze, caressing his face and blowing the hair on both sides. Since even these 2 casual cultivators can come in without the beads, then all the cultivators in Pipa Prefecture must be here. The aboriginal people in Pipa Prefecture are also people from Huaytan Valley, but they do not belong to the sword refining sect. The significance of their existence is mainly to obtain spiritual stones through various transactions of spiritual fish in the lake, so as to supply the sword refining sect in Huaytan Valley. The sword refining sect gave them appropriate protection. Judging from the current situation, even they have entered. The spiritual energy here is rich, and it has been isolated from the world for thousands of years. If you see the elixir, there will inevitably be some fights. It seems that this secret realm of the Book of Heaven. The speculation in Zuyun's mind soon turned into facts. Just as he thought of this, an extremely terrifying spiritual power wave came from the distance. As soon as he concentrated his mind, he noticed the thick earth spiritual power. I'm afraid only monks with a single spiritual root of the earth element can produce such a level of power. Zuyun looked into the distance, but he couldn't see the edge at a glance. The green grassland is endless. It seems that we have to go over and take a look. Now I have no clue about the book. It just so happens that even the Chaos Sword can't give him a choice of direction, so he might as well do it casually. He restrained his breath, took the steps of the immortality art, and ran towards that place crazily. At the same time, hundreds of miles away from here, two monks fought together. On one side was a shirtless, muscular monk, his exposed muscles shiny with oil. And her opponent is a graceful female cultivator. The female cultivator has a graceful figure, and when her figure flashes and moves, a ray of fire appears from time to time. It is obvious that the female cultivator is in a weak state and seems to be suppressed, but she can always escape with a glimmer of hope at critical moments. Little girl, you are good at escaping. But I have very strong endurance. I don't know if you can bear it or not. The strong man laughed evilly and kept dancing with his hands. On the ground, the soil kept flying, and from time to time some soil thorns would appear, trying to pierce the female cultivator's clothes. Snort. Mengwei snorted coldly, his face not moving at all. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzhuan Xianxia. Chapter 632. Mengwei had gone through so many battles in her life, and she couldn't count the number of times she had been in danger. How could this sturdy man's trash talk affect her mood? The reason why she was at a disadvantage was not because of her realm, but because she didn't understand fire magic at all. Everything was just relying on the basic fire control method of the spirit-fire symbiosis technique to deal with it. But this made the sturdy man think that Mengwei was at his mercy. Just as the two were anxious, Zuyun also rushed over from afar. Lian Nishang! Zuyun exclaimed, and did not recognize Mengwei. After all, in his impression, Mengwei should still be practicing in Chuzhu, and may even have returned to Yunzhou. With Zuyun's shout, the voice that haunted her reached Mengwei's ears, and she was distracted at this moment. She had never made such a mistake in fighting with Wang Jianchen for hundreds of years, but when she heard Zuyun's voice, she was distracted. Zhu. Before the word Yun was uttered, the strong man quickly changed his spells, and several earth spikes came out from the ground at the same time, piercing through the sleeves and trousers of Mengwei's hands and feet, and threw her upright in the air. Looking for death. Zuyun's eyes turned cold, and 5 fire dragons condensed in his left hand blasted towards the strong man, while the folding fan in his right hand also danced with it. Ang! The dragon roared, and under the folding fan, the power increased greatly, and the momentum was earth-shaking. Good guy, there is such a spell. The strong man shouted in a deep voice. Originally, he only danced with his fingers. This time he used both hands to deal with it. Huangtian thick earth, get up for me. As soon as the voice fell, the ground rumbled, and suddenly a wall of earth rose in front of the 5 fire dragons. Boom! 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 5 loud noises in succession, the fire dragons subsided, and the earth wall, on the other hand, stood still. Zuyun's eyes fixed. This earth-type cultivator was quite powerful. And to Yukong Hao, I think his defensive ability is far superior to that of cultivators of the same realm. However, no matter how strong you are, do you know the truth of the 5 elements? Ha ha ha, no matter how strong he is, I have an earth wall. Boy, if you want to be a hero and save the beauty, you have to see if you are strong enough. The strong man smiled obscenely and turned to look at Mengwei. But in an instant, his expression froze. Because Mengwei's posture was indecent, but at this moment, she was actually staring at Zuyun infatuatedly, without any regard for her current situation. It turns out to be an old acquaintance. The strong man snorted coldly, and then laughed wildly. If so, it will be more exciting for me to smash him into a cripple later, ha ha ha. It's just a single earth-type spiritual root in the Jindan stage, I haven't taken it seriously yet. Zuyun put away the folding fan and took out the fire dragon staff. Is this a spiritual weapon? Feeling the huge aura above, the sturdy man showed a greedy look on his face. He even wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and said, "Boy, you are a rich man. No wonder such a beautiful female cultivator would fall in love with a weakling like you." Weakling? Zuyun raised his eyebrows and then grinned. He must save Lian Nishang. No matter if she has become friends with him or she is Tang Liwen's only disciple. But he still doesn't know that this is Mengwei. Fairy Lian, wait a moment, I will destroy this guy's prestige. After that, Zuyun danced with the fire dragon staff and used the thunder escape technique. He flashed and he had already fought with the sturdy man. Zuyun could see that the sturdy man had amazing magic, so he could fight him in close combat and then look for an opportunity to use the chaos sword. No matter how strong your earth wall is, how can it stop my chaos sword? But Mengwei couldn't help but frown when she heard the three words Fairy Lian. At first, she didn't think much about it when she heard Zuyun calling out the three words Fairy Lian. But when she heard Zuyun say Fairy Lian again, Mengwei couldn't help but be distracted. Zuyun can't recognize me? Or, did he recognize the wrong person? Impossible. How could a cultivator recognize the wrong person? In fact, all this can only be said to be too coincidental. A while ago, Zuyun asked Lian Nishang to use the Heaven and Earth Change Talisman to transform into Mengwei's appearance, and entered the Heavenly Book Secret Realm together. No matter how Zuyun thought about it, he couldn't have thought that Mengwei would also enter it. In addition, Mengwei practiced the Spirit Fire Symbiosis art, and Lian Nishang did the same. The similar aura made Zuyun preconceived, and naturally regarded Mengwei as Lian Nishang. Just as Mengwei was thinking about it, Zuyun and the strong man were fighting hand to hand. Good boy, this is obviously a high-quality fire stick that can cast spells, but you use it as a fire stick. What a waste of resources, what a waste of resources. The strong man was calm in the face of danger, and he handled it with ease, and even had the opportunity to sigh. Zuyun was getting more and more frightened. Although he was holding a fire dragon stick in his hand, he could use the Wuji sword technique. The moves were simple and extremely effective. But the strong man's strength was not weak at all. With every move, his control over the earth spirit power was also outrageous. Every attack of Zuyun would hit his weak defense. When he was about to hit, he could always use the earth control method to block it instantly at the critical moment. He was right, the fire dragon staff was indeed a magic staff, and it was not very powerful in close combat. At the moment, he didn't have the upper hand. If he suddenly switched to using the chaos sword, it would probably arouse the vigilance of this strong man. Under this situation, Zuyun and the strong man were in a stalemate, and no one could do anything to the other. The fight between the two became increasingly loud and loud. Although Zuyun was not in a hurry, he had to be distracted from time to time and observe Mengwei's state. Although she looked nervous when I saw her, she was not in danger for the time being. I was somewhat relieved, but at the same time I couldn't help but think about how to get her out. Hey, kid, you're pretty good at this, how about making a friend? After another moment, the strong man suddenly appeared to be suing for peace, which made Zuyun stunned. Can it still be like this? But after all, the movements of the strong man's hands did not stop. Zuyun responded and said coldly, "If you want to make peace, you must first show your sincerity and let my friend go." Ha ha ha, that's easy to say. These days, there are not many people in the Peeper realm who can enter the Danja stage where I can see my eyes. You look so skinny, but I didn't expect you to be quite capable of fighting. The strong man smiled heartily, but suddenly slapped Zuyun with his palm. Zuyun held the fire dragon staff horizontally in front of him and gathered strength to carry it. The strong man took advantage of the force of the counterattack and quickly took several steps back. Just when Zuyun thought that he had been deceived by this strong man and was angry in his heart, He did not expect that Meng Wei's voice suddenly came from behind him. Zuyun, I'm fine. He was slightly startled, then saw the strong man laughing and saying, Tisk, 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 the famous flower has an owner, I really envy you. Hey, kid, you didn't think that I was sneaking up on you in the last moment, right? Although you can't beat me, I'm still afraid of being hit by your stick, so keep your distance. Zuyun snorted coldly, secretly thinking that this strong man actually had such thoughts. His spiritual consciousness was slightly released, and after he felt that Meng Wei was indeed fine, he said, since you let my friend go, then we will consider this matter to have been exposed, and we will say goodbye. After saying that, he took out his flying shuttle, picked up Meng Wei, and quickly flew in the direction he came from. Knowing people but not their hearts, who knows if this strong man's sudden show of kindness has another conspiracy. Because of this, he wanted to get away from here quickly. For Zuyun, since he has found Lian Nishang, he should first settle down and take a good rest. Seeing Zuyun Yuan go away, the strong man was stunned for a moment, and he laughed out loud, and then said to himself, interesting, isn't this the natal magical weapon of Feng Qingyang? I don't know if he borrowed it or snatched it. Yes. He, it seems that this guy is here well prepared, maybe just to grab the heavenly book. This secret realm is quite exciting. The strong man turned his head and ran away from Zuyun. And here, Meng Wei was holding hands with Zuyun and standing on the shuttle. He was already feeling confused and at a loss. It wasn't until Zuyun found a gently concave slope that no one would notice as long as he didn't get close that he put away the shuttle and landed. Fairy Lian, are you okay? Why don't you use magic to deal with that strong man? Zuyun sat on the floor and said to Meng Wei. I don't know. At this time, Meng Wei was extremely sure that Zuyun had admitted the wrong person, so he simply asked questions. Zuyun scratched his head and said with a bitter smile, you are also a direct descendant of the fire dragon section. If I hadn't arrived, you would have been miserable. Meng Wei blinked his eyes and said, do you care so much about my life and death? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 633. That's what you said? Zuyun showed dissatisfaction and said, we made an appointment in the Fire Dragon sect to break into the secret realm of the Book of Heaven together. Besides, you are not only Aunt Tang's disciple, but you have also helped me. Am I the ungrateful person? Really? I know what's going on in your head. Oh. Meng Wei finally figured out some information about Lian Nishang, so he responded casually, and then said, by the way, Zuyun, what should we do next? Are we going to find the Book of Heaven? Compared to Lian Nishang, she still knows more about the secret realm of the heavenly book. Unexpectedly, Zuyun realized something was wrong at this time. Why, you called me by my real name instead of calling me Huo Qinjue. It turns out you have a pseudonym. Meng Wei snickered in his heart and said, Huo Cheng doesn't sound good, but Zuyun calls it smoothly. It's up to you. Zuyun rolled his eyes and said, I will definitely look for the Book of Heaven. It concerns Aunt Tang's eyes, and I won't hide it from you now. Even if you, Master, also want the Book of Heaven, I can't give it to you either. Meng Wei couldn't answer this, so he directly changed the subject and said, Zhong Jiangjio is here too. He. Zuyun's eyes lit up and he said, he is really here. But in an instant, Zuyun frowned again and said, have you seen him? Meng Wei touched the bracelet on his wrist and said, I guessed it. Hearing this, Zuyun was immediately disappointed and said, you are so boring. I know he is definitely coming. This secret realm is too big, and I can't figure out the direction now. If I can know where he is, well, you can go over and see what's going on. Zuyun knew very well Zhong Jiangjiao's purpose. First seize the Yuanyan that refines the clothes and breaks through to the nascent soul stage, and then seizes the heavenly book. However, Lian Nishang is by my side now. Does he want to break through the nascent soul stage? It's just wishful thinking. As long as he doesn't become an infant, there is no one he can fear in this secret realm. No, there's that strong man too. The ability to control the earth is so strong. If I use the Chaos Sword and cannot kill him with one sword, I think this guy will run away far away and no longer fight me head on. Then the advantages of the Chaos Sword cannot be used. Zuyun was fascinated by this thought. Meng Wei looked interesting, so he stepped forward and shook Zuyun's shoulders, saying, "You're so good, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about some fairy?" Zuyun tilted his head, rolled his eyes at her, and said, "Lian Nishang, I didn't know you would say such a thing before. This is not." Meng Wei rolled his eyes and said, "There's no one around. I saw you were distracted, so I asked you to cheer up. Come on." Zuyun disdainfully said, "I'm just thinking about how to fight that strong man if I meet him again. This strong man is not weak. He shouldn't be able to hurt me if he wants to, but if he is really my opponent, I'm afraid I won't be able to such a good way to deal with it. If the Book of Heaven appears in his hands, what do you think I should do to grab it?" Meng Wei smiled and sat down next to Zuyun, hugging his knees with his hands, and said, "If you use fire spells to hit him, it will naturally have no effect. Muketu, couldn't you just use wood spirit power?" It's said without intention, but it sounds intentional. Zuyun stood up suddenly. "I almost forgot, I still have the wood spirit pearl with me. In the wood spirit bead, there is not only pure wood spirit power, but also a spirited fire dragon tree. If that doesn't work, I still have an ancestral tree. How could that boy be so calm once the ancestral tree came out? Ha ha ha, Fairy Lian, thank you for the reminder." Zuyun smiled brightly and immediately danced. Meng Wei looked at it with some bewilderment, and thought to himself, this kid is already in the pill formation stage, and his temperament is no different from the previous chi refining stage. After feeling happy, Zuyun sat down again and said, "By the way, why didn't you use fire spells to deal with it? With your ability, logically speaking, you wouldn't be trapped so easily." Meng Wei thought for a moment and said, "The main reason is that you came suddenly and I was distracted. So if I want to blame, I can only blame you. Can this be blamed on me?" Zuyun curled his lips, feeling that women were really a bit unreasonable. When he came, Meng Wei didn't use any fire spells at all, so he was suppressed everywhere. He could even tell that the strong man really meant no harm. Listening to his words, it was obvious that he coveted such beauty. Also, Meng Wei can be said to be the most stunning female cultivator he has ever seen. Except for Sun Qiniang, no one can compare with her. Don't talk about me either. Didn't you have nothing to do at that time? Zuyun touched his nose and said awkwardly, "Didn't I think of a way at the time? Now that I have it, if he dares to come, I will tell him why the flowers are so red." Zuyun raised his hand, and as if he suddenly remembered something, he placed the fire dragon staff in front of Meng Wei and said, "I remember, you don't seem to have a natal magic weapon, right? Otherwise, this fire dragon staff was given to you. Give it to me." Meng Wei was suddenly surprised. Of course she knew that Zuyun had always been generous. At that time, I could even give myself several longevity pills. What does this magic weapon mean? Thinking of this, Meng Wei simply accepted it generously. "Instead of cheapening the real Lian Nishang, you might as well give it to me. It just so happens that this fire dragon staff looks like a treasure of the fire element." As soon as he got the staff, Meng Wei could feel the pure fire power on it. At the same time, Two intertwined different auras rushed into her body along her palms. That was the sleeping battle between the fire dragon and the earth fire. This is a spiritual weapon. Mengwei exclaimed. What a fuss, Zuyun glanced at him and said, originally, I planned to keep this fire dragon staff for myself. But after much thought, after all, it was refined by your supreme elder Chief Yushin, and I am not a fire dragon. A member of the fire dragon sect, but you are a direct descendant of the fire dragon section. Mengwei didn't know that the fire dragon staff had a connection with the fire dragon sect, but just the spiritual weapon made her a little surprised. But when he thought of Zuyun's character and the strange red knife he had used, he felt relieved. Then I'm not welcome. Mengwei smiled slightly and bit his fingertips, intending to let the fire dragon staff recognize its owner. Zuyun had no time to stop him, as Mengwei's blood essence dripped onto the head of the staff. Hold head high. Whoops. The roar of the dragon and the roar of the earth fire sounded on the fire dragon staff at the same time. Two huge spiritual forces immediately rushed into Mengwei's Zi mansion. Boom. Mengwei felt a roar in his head, as if his head was hit by thunder from the sky, and he immediately passed out. I said I would use it for you, so why did you accept it as your master? Zuyun was extremely anxious and quickly stretched out his hand to support Mengwei. At the same time, he gave another palm and quickly placed it between Mengwei's eyebrows. Pure chaos power quickly poured in, trying to protect his Zifu. But due to the blood essence, Mengwei, regardless of his strength, was connected to the fire dragon staff. Earth Fire Lingzi, who was originally suppressed by the soul of the fire dragon, seemed to have grasped a life-saving straw and jumped towards Mengwei's Zi mansion crazily. The fire dragon was about to succeed, so how could he let the earth fire escape? He didn't care and rushed straight into Mengwei's Zi mansion. A dragon and a fire turned Mengwei's Zi mansion into a battlefield for control. Damn, you were so careless. Zuyun glared angrily, while using the power of chaos to surround the Zifu, he also used the other half of the power of chaos to protect Mengwei's soul. Buledin, who didn't know that Zuyun's eyes suddenly widened after this. Mengwei? Actually, not Lian Nishang. The shock caused Zuyun's mind to completely stop thinking. The spiritual intelligence of Earth Fire instantly took advantage of the situation and completely occupied Mengwei's Zifu. The next step was to devour her soul, thereby taking the opportunity to strengthen itself and counter the fire dragon. Not good. Zuyun exclaimed, if this is the case, Mengwei will definitely die. There is still obsession in his heart. Give Mengwei a longevity pill. Nowadays, the Xiaoyuan Dan is placed quietly on the stone bed in the immortal mansion. How could it be possible for her soul to be destroyed? Damn it, get out of here. Zuyun frantically circulated the chaos power in her body, pouring it into her Zi mansion continuously. However, the fire dragon also seemed to have lost its mind and launched an attack on Zuyun's chaos power. At this moment, it was simply a three-party melee. Zuyun had some scruples. How could he be their opponent? Puff puff puff. Zuyun kept spitting out blood from his mouth, and the backlash of the chaos force made him extremely uncomfortable. But Zuyun knew that he couldn't stop. No matter how difficult it was, he had to persevere and figure out a way to deal with it. As long as he stops for a breath, even if Mengwei survives, he will become a walking zombie without self-awareness. But I didn't expect it. The shackles on the chaos seed suddenly lighted up. At this moment, it was like a reservoir that was releasing water like crazy, and a huge gate suddenly dropped. Zuyun's chaotic power in Mengwei's Zi mansion was instantly swallowed up. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 634. When the Purple Mansion lost its protective power, Mengwei was already in a life and death crisis. At this time, the role of the spirit fire symbiosis art was highlighted. The earth fire that was sleeping and recuperating in Mengwe's lower abdomen rushed into the purple mansion without hesitation in order to survive. If Mengwe died, then it would not be able to survive. This is one of the characteristics of the spirit fire symbiosis art. Hula. Mengwe's earth fire was originally taken from Yexianming, and it was born from the earth fire vein of the fire dragon sect. The earth fire vein is the habitat of the fire dragon. Mengwe's earth fire has a fear from the depths of his spiritual wisdom. Moreover, Qi Fuxian's earth fire, whether in terms of age or purity, is countless times stronger than this earth fire. So, Mengwe's earth fire is equivalent to a moth that is sending itself to death. But the sudden fire power reminded Zuyun. Mengwe's earth fire is not high enough, so, use the sky fire. At this moment, it was like a dream back to the secret realm of Zilang Peak, the moment when Mengwe was about to die. Zuyun did not hesitate, and focused all his mind on the fire spirit pearl, using the suppression of the fire spirit pearl to pull out the sky fire dragon. What are you doing? The sky fire dragon was originally recuperating, and according to the agreement with Zuyun, he could recover through the fire spirit pearl. But at this time, in order to let Mengwe survive, he could not care too much. Save her. Save her life. If there is a chance in the future, I can give you a chance. Zuyun's eyes were red, and he did not give the sky fire dragon a chance to resist, and directly pressed him into Mengwe's lower abdomen. At this time, the earth fire obtained from Yexianming had been eaten up by Qi Fuxian's earth fire and fire dragon. Mengwe, who felt the passing of vitality, suddenly woke up like a last ray of light. Her eyes were extremely clear. She looked at Zuyun in front of her and murmured, "Zuyun, am I going to die?" No, Zuyun's eyes were about to burst, and he roared angrily, "Use the spirit fire symbiosis technique. Quick! Spirit fire symbiosis technique." This scene seemed familiar to Mengwe. The picture in his memory emerged and finally merged with the scene in front of him. Yes, spirit fire symbiosis technique. Quick, your last chance to survive. I don't want you to die. Zuyun knew that the opportunity was fleeting. There was no breath of earth fire on Mengwe's body. If it was delayed for a moment, she would really die. But Mengwe was still wondering, hadn't he practiced the spirit fire symbiosis technique? Why did he still? As soon as the thought came up, an incomparable fire power jumped up in his lower abdomen. It was countless times stronger than the previous earth fire. But, it was very strange. A brand new spirit fire? Mengwe's eyes suddenly showed a light. It was almost the same crisis, and he almost immersed himself back to the past. Spirit fire symbiosis technique. Zuyun is saving me. She raised her head slightly, her clear eyes met Zuyun's hopeful eyes, and a desire to survive surged violently. With spiritual fire in the body, the fate is hanging. Fire is in the person, and the person is in the fire. Live and die together, strong and weak together. She is very proficient in the spirit fire symbiosis technique, which is also the only technique she practices. The sky fire dragon resisted at first. As a sky fire, he was extremely arrogant. He was suppressed in Huaden Valley for countless years, but he was never wiped out. But at this time, he found himself powerless to resist. Because Zuyun sacrificed the water spirit pearl after pressing the sky fire dragon into Mengwe's lower abdomen. The azure blue pearl exuded a very strong breath of water spirit power. He was too weak, and he felt from instinct that if he didn't obey, Zuyun would kill him immediately. The sky fire dragon was scared. In addition, Zuyun once again made a promise, so he could only accept the result of becoming Mengwe's spiritual fire. As Mengwe successfully tied himself to the sky fire dragon, the thought of protecting his master made the sky fire dragon quickly rush into the purple mansion. Sky fire. The fire dragon, who had been fighting with the earth fire and was even a little confused, Woke up instantly. Get out. The Sky Fire Dragon was domineering. At the moment when he was connected with Mengwe's mind, he already knew that this fire dragon was the spirit of the fire dragon staff in his hand. If the fire dragon was killed, then Mengwe's newly obtained life spirit weapon would be instantly damaged, and she would also be seriously injured. The fire dragon didn't care about continuing to deal with the earth fire, and quickly retreated along Mengwe's meridians, hiding back in the fire dragon staff through his hand. Then, the Sky Fire Dragon transformed into a fire dragon in the purple mansion, opened its mouth wide, and directly swallowed Qi Fusion's earth fire in an instant. Hula! The flames suddenly rose. Not bad, this earth fire has been nurtured by human blood for nearly 1,000 years. The depressed mood of the Sky Fire Dragon finally eased a little. And Mengwe's purple palace became quiet instantly. Zuyun felt the breath in front of him calm down, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Mengwe had already closed his eyes. The long and dense eyelashes trembled slightly with her eyelids, making Zuyun a little absent-minded for a while. For a while. Zuyun's eyes suddenly shrank, and he quickly flew back. At the same time, he took out a handful of spirit stones and threw them in all directions. The 9 transformations and 9 yang formation, which changed in 99 and 80 ways, took shape, protecting Mengwe in the formation. Just when he had just finished setting up the formation, a huge, pure flame suddenly appeared on Mengwe's body. As the flames enveloped Mengwe's body, she also opened her eyes. Zuyun, I seem to be about to break through. Zuyun took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, don't panic, I will protect you. Thanks. Mengwe's beautiful eyes curved into crescent moons. Then, close it again. Boom. The flames burning on her body flew away from her body and flew above her head, forming a vortex of fire spiritual power and began to absorb the spiritual energy crazily. Strands of spiritual energy, tempered by the flame vortex formed by the Sky Fire Dragon, entered her body from Mengwe's eyebrows. The bottom of the vortex is right here. Zuyun was breathing rapidly, and it took him a long time to calm down. Only then did he realize that the 9 turns and 9 yang formation could not completely cover up the signs of Mengwe's breakthrough. Countless people have entered the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. It's not that easy for me to deal with just that strong man. If there are still some difficult people to deal with. Zuyun's heart sank, he took out the spirit stone again and started to set up the formation. This time, what he wants to set up is the star movement formation. Pieces of spiritual stones were placed outside the 9 turns and 9 yang formation. But when the formation was being set up, the aura brought by Mengwe's breakthrough had already been noticed by many monks. Only they didn't know someone had broken through. In their opinion, such a huge fire spirit power is a natural phenomenon, and a great treasure must be born. These monks would inevitably wonder if it was a heavenly book, so they naturally gathered towards this place. If more people come, they will also bring along the rest of the monks. Suddenly, within 1,000 miles radius, it was like sharks in the sea smelled the smell of blood and gathered together. But no matter how fast they came, they couldn't set up the formation as quickly as Zuyun. By the time the battle formation was filled with monks, Mengwe's breakthrough was not over yet. It is enough to show how powerful Mengwe will be when he uses the heavenly fire dragon to practice the spiritual fire symbiosis technique. At this time, the whirlpool of fire above Mengwe's head had already risen to the sky. Within the secret realm, there are still monks coming continuously. Zuyun's attention was all on Mengwe. It's incredible. She must have broken through to the late stage of pill formation. The movement is so loud. If the pill formation becomes a baby, the movement will probably be even greater. Zuyun was also attracted by the fire whirlpool and did not even notice that there were monks outside the Dozhuangxing shifting formation. There are many proud disciples among them. Obviously, these talented disciples from the direct lineage were restraining each other, and no one broke into the formation first to avoid being attacked by the crowd. Because of this, if they don't join the formation, they won't be discovered by Zuyun. Of course, the more reason was the natural abnormality and the strange formation, which made them even more believe that the Book of Heaven was about to be born. A handsome monk said loudly, "Is there a fellow Taoist from the Tianzhen sect here? I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills." Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 635. Brother Paideo, there are two people from our Tianzhen sect this time. A young man, followed by an almost equally young female nun, squeezed in from outside the crowd. Pei Wei, the Tianzhen sect is only in the Dan formation stage. It's not that easy to break through the formation in this secret realm, right? A female voice as crisp as an oriole sounded, and the speaker was a female cultivator from the Suanji section. Her name was Leng Rushuan. She was also a genius of this generation, and her strength reached its peak in the late stage of pill formation. As the name suggests, he is as cold as ice. Even when he speaks, he is cold and devoid of any emotion. Pei Wei smiled casually, then shrank his face and said calmly, "I, Pei Wei, want you, a female class, to teach me how to do things." As soon as these words came out, everyone shut their mouths. The atmosphere suddenly became tense and almost dropped to freezing point. When the Haoshan sect is doing things, it's naturally not my turn to teach you. It's just that this secret treasure is for those who are capable. You can't break the formation, let people from the Tianzhen sect break it, then if it is really a heavenly book, you will be able to break it. Give it to them. In an instant, everyone's eyes fell on the two people from the Tianzhen sect. "Whether I separate or not, what does it have to do with you?" Pei Wei sneered and said, "Leng Rushuan, the Suanji sect treats you as a treasure, and the Qingyuan sect also treats you as a treasure, but I, Pei Wei, will not take it seriously. I let the people of the Tianzhen sect break the formation and return it. It's not your turn to speak." A joke, Leng Rushuan turned to look at the man and woman and said lightly, "You are not strong enough to break the formation." The tone was not only cold, but also unquestionable. When the woman behind him saw Leng Rushuan being so determined, she was dissatisfied and aroused her desire to win. Just when she was about to open her mouth to refute, her companion pulled her clothes and signaled her not to speak. But this female cultivator couldn't see the situation clearly at all. If it weren't for Leng Rushuan, they would have just helped Pei Wei break the formation. But at this time, anyone with a discerning eye can see that Leng Rushuan has treated them as pawns in his dealings with Pei Wei. "Brother Paideo, Fairy Leng, I can only try my best to see if this formation can be broken. After all, our Tianzhen sect came in this time and did not want to seize any treasures, it was just for training. You too must not, it hurts the harmony." This was said very cleverly. Neither party was offended, and the Tianzhen sect was kept away from it. By then, no matter whether the formation can be broken or not, no one can blame them. Snort. Leng Rushuan brushed down her sleeves and took 2 steps back. Pei Wei laughed, but after the laughter stopped, his expression became extremely grim. Even colder than Leng Rushuan. "If this formation cannot be broken, then you will die." A sense of chilling suddenly surged into everyone's hearts. Is the Haoshan sect such an unreasonable person? Brother Paideo is joking, we brothers and sisters should do our best. This formation looks a bit complicated, but as long as you carefully find the formation patterns, it shouldn't be difficult. It just takes more time. After saying that, the male cultivator pulled his sister and bowed to Pei Wei as if he was apologetic. Then, they saluted all parties in the same way. This made all the monks nod their heads. The Tianzhen sect, not to mention having good relations with all major sects, has never had any conflicts. As long as you are a monk, you can't do without the formation. And Tianzhen sect is the leader in this field. However, the reason why Pei Wei and Leng Rushuan didn't take them seriously was that, in addition to their relationship with the Heavenly Book Secret Realm, news of Tianzhen's disappearance had been circulating in the Peeper Realm for some time. Without the masters in charge, Tianzhen section. It's really not that big of a deal anymore. Please wait a moment, we brother and sister entered the battle first. After saying that, he took his sister's hand and entered directly into the star-shifting formation. At this moment, Zuyun immediately felt something and quickly looked towards the formation. Only then did I realize that not only were there intruders in the formation, but there were also monks outside the formation. Sure enough, it attracted a lot of monks. It seems that their realm is not low. Zuyun's eyesight was amazing, and he naturally focused on Pei Wei and Leng Rushuan. Apart from them, there are still more than 10 people who are at the peak of the late stage of pill formation. They have different auras, each with their own strengths and weaknesses. But at this level, the true strength sometimes cannot be seen from the momentum. Just like him, it is obvious that he is only in the late stage of pill formation, but how many nascent souls have he killed along the way? This is also part of strength. It's not simple. These two people entered the formation and were probably coerced. Zuyun finally set his sights on the two people from the Tianzhen sect, only to see them whispering quietly and not in a hurry to break the formation. He thought for a moment and looked back to see that Mengwei had reached the final stage of breakthrough and no longer needed to protect him. Then he swayed and sneaked not far from the two of them. Brother, if Master is still here, how dare they do this to our Tianzhen sect? As soon as he got closer, Zuyun heard the angry voice of the female cultivator. The male cultivator said, "Little sister, your strength must be in your own hands. It is useless to rely on others. No matter how strong the master is, even if he does not die, he will always leave one day. Is it possible that we will always live with the master? Under the protection of his reputation? Let's think about how we can use this formation to escape." Zuyun was stunned at first, but he did not expect that these two people were from the Tianzhen sect, let alone the disciples of Tianzhenzi. However, what this male cultivator said was a rare moment of sobriety in the world. Indeed, no matter how strong others are, can they protect you for a while, but can they protect you for a lifetime? It seemed that these two people were forced into the breaking formation. Even a strong one like Tianzhenzi would be trapped by the Dozhuan Xinyi formation for several hours. You two are his disciples. It may not be so easy to break the formation. Zuyun stood beside the two with a smile on his face. The female cultivator was obviously reminded by her brother and began to calm down and discuss how to break the formation. But after the Dozhuan Xinyi formation was opened, anyone who came in would be in the void. Fortunately, the male cultivator came in holding his sister's hand, otherwise, the two of them would be separated and lost here. Actually, this time, I brought a formation breaking hammer. However, breaking this formation may mean our death. Whether it is Pei Wei or Leng Rushuan, these two people are not easy to deal with. The male cultivator sighed, took out a golden hammer from the storage bag, and then put it back. Zuyun was a little surprised. Because he also has a formation breaking hammer. However, he had not encountered any formation that he had to break by force, so he had ignored this talisman. But from what this guy said, it seemed that there were two people outside who were not getting along. It seemed that there was another excitement to watch. He touched his chin and decided to find out more information to see if he could leave the formation with Mengwei safely. If he wanted to leave the formation, it would be very easy. But at this time, there were people outside the formation, and no matter where he went out, he would definitely be discovered. He could leave the formation and use the thunder escape technique quickly. But with Mengwei, it was not so convenient. After thinking about it, Zuyun suddenly had an idea. After Mengwei broke through, he should not be so weak, right? Besides, didn't he have a shuttle? There was no need to run away as soon as he got out, so he had time. Anyway, there was no treasure here at all, and obviously, these people had not found the heavenly book. Then I would not watch this excitement, and take Mengwei around to look around. Thinking of this, Zuyun was no longer in a hurry. He just waited for Mengwei to break through, and then asked the two people to come to the formation and ask the people outside what was going on. After making the decision, Zuyun stepped back from the two people and returned to the 9 transformations and 9 suns formation. At this time, the vortex above Mengwei's head had slowly descended. Taking advantage of this time, he also entered the immortal mansion and took out the longevity pill from it. Until the fire vortex was completely immersed in Mengwei's eyebrows, Mengwei's eyelids trembled slightly, and then slowly opened his eyes. Zuyun, I have broken through to the late stage of the Jindan. This feeling is so good. Mengwei looked at Zuyun in front of him and smiled. Congratulations. Zuyun also responded with a smile, but then he asked again, by the way, how many years do you have left in your life now? Hearing this, Mengwei's face tightened, but his heart was warm. It turns out that Zuyun still remembered this. But it seems that he didn't find the immortal grass that can be used to refine the longevity pill. In order not to make Zuyun worry, she forced a smile. It's okay, at my rate of breakthrough, I will soon reach the nascent soul stage, and then my lifespan will be enough. Zuyun spread out his palms and said with a wicked smile, put your head over here, I'll show you a treasure. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 636. Zuyun said the same thing when he gave Mengwei the longevity pill for the first time. Mengwei was shocked, but he looked at Zuyun's hand uncontrollably. When I saw a round pill, exuding vitality and a strong medicinal fragrance, I couldn't help but feel a little stunned. Xiao, Yuan Dan. It would be extremely incredible for an ordinary monk to have a longevity pill. But Zuyun gave her 2 different longevity pills. At this moment, Mengwei could not suppress his excitement and could only cover his mouth with both hands. But tears are like a flood that breaks a dam. It flows down the smooth cheeks, flows through the corners of the bright red mouth, and cuts across the white neck. Hey, why are you crying when you are so happy? Zuyun hated seeing a woman cry the most, so he felt a little at a loss for a moment. Seeing this, Mengwei smiled with tears in his eyes and said angrily, don't you know the word crying with joy? Zuyun scratched his head, handed the Xiaoyuan pill to him, and said, you should eat it first, I have something to do later. Good. Mengwei didn't show any pretense and stretched out his hand. When he picked up the elixir with 2 fingers, he accidentally dug into Zuyun's palm with the tip of his little finger. Hiss. Zuyun was so itchy that he took a breath of cold air, but did not dare to make any move. He was afraid that if he accidentally made a big move and slapped the pill onto the ground, this would greatly affect the medicinal properties of the Xiaoyuan pill. What you do? After seeing Mengwei swallow the pill into his mouth, he glared angrily. Snort. Mengwei turned his head arrogantly, but cursed in his heart, I don't understand the charm. She was generous in front of Sun Qiniang, admitting her endless love for Zuyun, but when she really faced Zuyun, the little woman's mentality was fully revealed. My courage seems to be gone at this moment. When the elixir enters the abdomen, it immediately turns into a stream of vitality, flowing from Mengwei's 9 meridians into the internal organs, bones, blood, skin and flesh. What a powerful force of vitality! Mengwei was amazed in her heart. After the medicine was completely absorbed, she stared and said, Zuyun, what kind of elixir did you refine? It actually increased my lifespan by 500 years. Zuyun didn't hide anything, and said, "It's Hong Yi. I wonder if you have heard of it?" Hong Yi. Meng Wei frowned and searched in his mind, then shook his head and said, "Although I don't know how to make alchemy, I am also someone who has read a lot of books. Zuyun, don't lie to me. There is such a magical medicine." Zuyun was stunned for a moment, and then he remembered that he didn't recognize Hongye when he saw it for the first time. Could it be that rainbow leaf is not an ordinary elixir, but an elixir that only exists in the fairy world? Just a few leaves can add 500 years to your life. One piece of blood ginseng is only 100 years old. When Zuyun was refining it, he did feel that the vitality power on it was much stronger than that of blood ginseng, but he instinctively thought that it might be related to the year. After all, from a spiritual point of view, Hongye is much higher than blood ginseng. But obviously, the reason for increasing longevity is not the year. But rainbow leaves are elixir. So, what about purple grass and yellow dragon tree? Zuyun, what's wrong with you? Are you trying to lie to me? Meng Wei's words ruthlessly interrupted Zuyun's thoughts. No way. What did I lie to you for? Zuyun came back to his senses and said dissatisfied. Who knows? Meng Wei tucked one side of his hair behind his ear and said, I won't tell you this anymore. Master is right, no man is good. Zuyun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. If he fought with others, he was very articulate and never lost. But he really has never won in a fight with Meng Wei. He simply chose to acquiesce and said instead, how is your strength now? There are many monks who are at the peak of the late stage of pill formation outside. Huh? Is there someone outside? Meng Wei looked around and saw no one, but when he came here with Zuyun, he still remembered that it was a depression. But under the formation, the surrounding scenery completely changed. Did you set up a formation to protect me? For no reason, my heart felt warm again. This Zuyun is quite attentive. Yes, outside the formation, there are at least a dozen late-stage pill formation peaks. And in the outer formation, there are two people coming in with the intention of breaking the formation. Meng Wei lowered his head and looked at the fire dragon staff he had been holding in his hand, and said, I don't know how to write the word fear. Zuyun, if you want to beat or kill me, I will listen to you. For a moment, the momentum of the young palace master of Yaluo sect was fully revealed. Zuyun couldn't laugh or cry, and said, what the hell, there are so many people, it's hard for two fists to defeat four hands. Besides, you don't know any fire spells. If you really want to fight, it's us who will suffer. Then what are you asking? Meng Wei said with a smile, I thought you were planning to take me out to kill you. In this case, why don't you run away and stay here to die? Zuyun stretched out his hand, and the shuttle appeared in his hand. This is a good treasure for escaping. However, the current situation is that these people will not necessarily attack us. What I want to do is to understand with them under the circumstances, maybe it will be helpful to us when the time comes to fight for the Book of Heaven. Zuyun, you also want the Book of Heaven? Meng Wei was stunned and felt that this was not Zuyun's style. Well, I want the Book of Heaven. Zuyun scratched his head, not knowing how to explain it, but Meng Wei said, is it for that Lian Nishang? No, it's for the second master who refines the colorful clothes, and Tang. Meng Wei frowned slightly and said, your surname is Tang. Zuyun did not deny it, and said, yes, her surname is Tang, and she is from the Tang family in Yezhu. She is already in the nascent soul stage. Due to various reasons, she went to save the big dog, and I obtained the heavenly book and told her about it. In exchange. I see. Meng Wei's eyes lit up, and he thought to himself that it would be fine as long as it wasn't for other female cultivators. But is the big dog injured? Meng Wei asked. Well, when I was in Chuzhu, I met a female cultivator from the Silver Sword sect, and ended up breaking one of her hands. Speaking of this, Zuyun gritted his teeth. You must take revenge then. Silver Sword sect. Meng Wei frowned again and said, isn't the big dog with the master? The master has a good relationship with the head of the Silver Sword section. How could this happen? Yes, sect master Luo's golden elixir did go to the Silver Sword sect, but later De Go and Chen Hua were tricked into entering the demon refining tower. They happened to meet me in the tower and found out about the female cultivator who tricked them into entering. Zuyun recounted the situation in the demon refining tower. That, Zuyun, after hearing Zuyun's words, Meng Wei said softly, Chen Hua is dead. What? Suddenly, Zuyun's eyes widened. He put his hands on Meng Wei's shoulders, looked directly at Meng Wei, and asked in shock, how did he die? Who killed him? Isn't that right? People from the Silver Sword sect. Meng Wei said anxiously, Zuyun, calm down. It has nothing to do with the Silver Sword sect. He is from the Fire Dragon sect. Fire Dragon sect. Zuyun said angrily, impossible. Chen Hua was only in the foundation building stage at that time, so it was impossible for him to go to the Peeper realm. Moreover, it was impossible for a monk in the Peeper realm to leave Shiwanda mountain to kill a minor foundation building cultivator. Zuyun, calm down. Meng Wei also cooed and said, listen to me. Sun Qiniang told me. When Sun Qiniang is not around, Meng Wei will not be affected by calling her Jian Tianming. Did Sun Qiniang tell you? Sun Qiniang also came to the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. Hearing Sun Qiniang's name, Zuyun's body suddenly stiffened. Sun Qiniang is in the Fire Dragon sect, but not in the secret realm. Meng Wei said softly, Zuyun, listen to me slowly and don't get excited. There are many monks outside. Okay, I listen to you. Zuyun also knew that he was indeed a little too excited just now. Looking at it again, he found that his hands were still tightly clasping Meng Wei's shoulders, his face was slightly hot, and he took it back in a sly manner. Meng Wei didn't care, she even enjoyed the rich touch from Zuyun's palms. Sun Qiniang and I met at Shiwanda mountain, things are a bit complicated to talk about. I will tell you the ones related to Chen Hua. Meng Wei was afraid that Zuyun would be too excited again, so he concealed the information about Sun Suanhua, Yejiakan, and Aniao, and slowly revealed the information he knew about Chen Hua's death. Until Zuyun sat down on the ground slumped. Zuyun, my condolences, the reason why Sun Qiniang and I got into the Fire Dragon sect was because we wanted to avenge Chen Hua. Zuyun wiped the corners of his eyes and said, those people have died in my hands long ago, I even pretended to be one of them and got into the Fire Dragon section. He matched the time and the number of people. He found out that Huo Qinjue, who died in his own hands, turned out to be the murderer of Chen Hua. Zuyun, since Chen Hua's revenge has been avenged, you must focus on the present now. After all, you still need to obtain the heavenly book. Meng Wei was afraid that Zuyun would be affected, so he reminded him softly. I know, don't worry. Zuyun stood up and looked outside the formation, his eyes extremely firm. Indeed, there are more important things. Chen Hua is dead, Big Dog and Ergu, please don't let anything happen again. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 637. Far away. Zhongjiangjao is alone. After entering the secret realm of the Book of Heaven, he separated from Meng Wei. However, Zhongjiangjao is not worried about Meng Wei's position. The positioned magic weapon was made by Zhong Jingguo himself. As long as he puts it on, no one can take it off unless he recites a special formula. Why are there so many people heading in the direction of Meng Wei? Zhong Jinao looked over there and muttered to himself. Originally, he wanted to go to Meng Wei as soon as possible and directly steal her Yuan Yin. Unexpectedly, after driving hundreds of miles, he discovered a strange phenomenon. Moreover, he also saw several monks whose realm and status were not weaker than his. For example, Pei Wei from Haoshan sect, Leng Rushuan from Suanji section. She can't escape anywhere anyway, so we'd better check the situation first. Zhong Jiangjia was no longer in a hurry, but landed on the ground and walked as if for a walk. At the same time, Lian Nishang, who was separated from Zhu Yun, also discovered boundless firepower. However, she only wanted to find Zhu Yun and had no idea about the Book of Heaven or the vision. She touched the transmission talisman in her arms. She wanted to transmit the sound to Zhu Yun immediately, but then she thought about it and realized that she could not determine the direction at this time. Even if I contacted Zhu Yun, I still don't know how to describe the location. I'd better wait to find a place to stay and take a look around. In this case, Lian Nishang left in the opposite direction. Only, if she continues like this, she is very likely to run into Zhong Jiangjia. Zhu Yun, what should we do now? Seeing that Zhu Yun's mood had stabilized, Meng Wei immediately spoke. She couldn't see the situation outside, but heard Zhu Yun say that there were many pill-forming periods outside. It's okay, just wait and see what happens. Zhu Yun glanced at the brothers and sisters of the Tianzhen sect in the Dozhuan scene shift formation again, pondered for a moment, and said, "You rest here, I will sneak over and take a look." "Aren't you afraid of being discovered?" Meng Wei was startled and saw Zhu Yun turning his head and smiling. "They can't find me in this formation." As soon as he finished speaking, Zhu Yun had already left the 9 turns and 9 suns formation and entered the Dozhuan scene shift formation again. Meng Wei couldn't see outside the formation, and the brother and sister couldn't even see that there was another person lurking beside them in the endless void. "Brother, have you thought of a way? This is unheard of, and I don't know how to leave." The younger sister looked worried and said while looking around. Having been in the formation for some time, their progress was slow. It was Zhu Yun who didn't use thousands of stars to attack them. Otherwise, how could these two people survive? "No, of course we have never seen the formation in the secret realm," the male cultivator said. "Don't worry, this formation is either used to trap the treasures inside, or to prevent monks from outside from entering. Let's see what happens. If that doesn't work, use the formation breaking hammer." "Then why not now? Use it now." "I'm afraid there will be too much noise. If Pei Wei and Leng Rushuan are disturbed outside, we may not have a good end. Therefore, we can only use it as a trump card. Remember, we haven't reached an extremely critical moment yet. Hold on." When the male cultivator said this, the younger sister had no choice but to mutter something. She was obviously dissatisfied with the male cultivator's decision but couldn't help it. Zhu Yun watched for a while and felt that these two people would probably stay in the star-shifting formation for a long time, so it was time for him and Meng Wei to leave. Returning to the 9 turns and 9 suns formation again, Zhu Yun said, "Wei, it's time for us to leave." Meng Wei stood up immediately, his eyes shining brightly, and said, "Let's go out directly, or stay with those monks. Just in case, it's better for us to go directly. After all, there are many people on the other side. If we really want to fight, I'm afraid we will suffer a loss." Zhu Yun is relatively cautious. "Oh well." But Meng Wei is a little bit disappointed. Not only did she break through to the late stage of pill formation, but she also had a fire dragon staff that became her natal spiritual weapon. At the same time, she possessed heavenly fire, and her strength could be said to be much stronger than before. Even though she didn't understand the fire magic, she still wanted to try it. Deep down, she is still the competitive young palace master of Yaluo sect. "Come on, let's go from this end." Zhu Yun stepped onto the flying boat with a smile. After Meng Wei also stood up, Zhu Yun walked out of 2 large formations from behind. Outside, the tense atmosphere was stagnated by the sudden appearance of the two men. Someone. Pei Wei frowned. Zuyun and Mengwei were both familiar with each other, so. Is it a casual cultivator? And when they walked out of the formation, they must have taken away the treasure. But Len Rushuan's reaction was faster than him. He waved his hand and shouted, "Get down here." Before he finished speaking, the surrounding temperature dropped sharply. With Zuyun as the center, within 10 steps, icicles were densely covered. Zuyun snorted coldly, and immediately found a safe route under the breaking void spirit eye technique. Unexpectedly, Mengwei yelled, "How dare you hurt me with just ice spiritual power?" The improvement in strength brought Mengwei's pride back. A flame emerged from her eyebrows and quickly formed a connection with the fire dragon staff in her hand. "Hold head high." Accompanied by the sound of the dragon's roar, the fire spiritual power in the fire dragon staff came out majestically. Not only was the lowered temperature offset, but a burst of flames also turned all the sudden ice cones into rain. How can there be such strong fire power in the late stage of pill formation? She must have obtained the fire element treasure in it. The thoughts in Len Rushuan's mind were like lightning. After making such a guess, he immediately rose up and flew towards Mengwei. At this time, Zuyun was already flying the flying boat into the distance. No matter Len Rushuan, Pei Wei, or any of the monks, they never expected that Zuyun would leave as soon as he said so. Now it is completely impossible to continue chasing. Damn it! Len Rushuan was furious and immediately recited the formula. A layer of frost quickly condensed on her body. After a few breaths, an ice sculpture of a bird or animal suddenly formed. The ice sculpture was lifelike, flapping its wings and chasing Zuyun at a speed that no one could match. I didn't expect Len Rushuan to reach such a state. Pei Wei's eyes narrowed, a little surprised. But then, he also sacrificed a magic weapon, then stepped into the air, following closely behind. The other monks saw this and looked at each other. They also want to chase. But I am wary of the strength of these two people. Zuyun, two people are chasing you. Mengwei, who was standing behind the shuttle, reminded Zuyun. I know, Zuyun said lightly, these two people should be the strongest people. The female cultivator who uses ice spiritual power is quite powerful. Humph, Mengwei said disdainfully, put me down and see if I don't make her wet all over her body. Zuyun laughed dumbly, shook his head, and said, it's just a meaningless fight, so what if we beat it? Not only do I want to find the Book of Heaven, but I also want to find Lian Nishang. Mengwei said angrily, Zuyun, we have just entered the secret realm, why are you anxious? You will definitely have enough time. If you don't want to fight, I won't fight. When the work is done, if you want to fight, I will accompany you. That's what you said, Mengwei immediately laughed and said, when you do something good, you have to listen to me, how about it? Is it what you say? It can only be done in a secret realm. There's nothing you can do outside. That's natural. How could I lie to you? Okay, you won't lie to me. When it comes to bickering, he will never take advantage of Mengwei. Zuyun put away his thoughts and began to control the shuttle with all his strength. But soon, he discovered that the shuttle seemed unable to get rid of these two people. Not only was Len Rushuan very fast, even Pei Wei behind was not much slower. Wei, you can change your name to Crow. Zuyun cursed and said, you can't get rid of your crow's mouth now, so we can only fight. Very good. Mengwei was just waiting for Zuyun's words, and had no time to refute the name Zuyun had just given her. He said excitedly, then little bitch, leave it to me. You deal with the one flying from behind. Zuyun couldn't laugh or cry. It was the first time he discovered that Mengwei was still a militant, so he had to observe the nearby terrain and said, wait a moment, let's find a suitable place. Let's fight, you still have so many demands. Meng Wei curled his lips and looked down at the fire dragon staff in his hand, looking eager to try. Until Zhu Yun's flying shuttle suddenly fell, Meng Wei turned over and stood firmly on the ground. Then he waved the fire dragon staff, and a fire dragon rushed out from the head of the staff and rushed towards the bird and beast that turned into an ice sculpture. As cold as frost. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 638. Call out. There was a sound of breaking through the air, and the ice sculpture melted by Leng Rushuan suddenly opened its mouth and spit out a piece of white ice mist. The ice mist is full of fine ice ballast. But these ice masses are all transformed by extremely pure ice spiritual power. The fusion of ice and fire is actually about the same. Meng Wei wants to strike first, but Leng Rushuan's realm is higher. Zhu Yun, on the other hand, looked at Pei Wei quietly as he flew over. The fight between the two women did not seem to affect him at all. Until, Pei Wei landed calmly and looked at Zhu Yun with a half-smile on his face. Pei Wei, the young master of the Haoshan sect, what do you call me? If Zhu Yun hadn't heard the conversation between the two brothers and sisters in the formation earlier, even if Zhu Yun was suspicious of Pei Wei's motives, he wouldn't have been so defensive at this time. It turns out that he is a high-ranking disciple of the great section. No wonder he is so talented and profound. I wonder if fellow Taoist Pei is following Gao. What can I ask for advice? When Zhu Yun was about to stop responding, he already thought of his disguised identity. It's Tianzhen's inner disciple, Gao Qiao. From the conversation with Zhong Jingguo that day, Zhu Yun remembered that Gao Qiao had never gone out for training. In other words, even if people in the Peeper realm know Takahashi, they have never met him. Fellow Taoist's surname is Gao. Pei Wei glanced at the two women who were already fighting together from the corner of his eye, and frowned at Zhu Yun. Yes, I am a disciple of Tianzhen sect, Gao Qiao. Are you Takahashi? Pei Wei was stunned for a moment, then suddenly smiled heartily and said, it turns out that he is the disciple of Senior Tianzhenzi, whom I have admired for a long time. Zhu Yun raised his eyebrows and said, why, fellow Daoist Pei has heard of my name? Before Gao came to the secret realm of the Book of Heaven, he had never walked in the Peeper realm. As the young master of the Haoshan sect, Pei naturally knows something about the geniuses of the major sects in the Peeper realm. Fellow Taoist Gao has never left home, but his reputation is far-reaching. Among our generation, he is also a genius who cannot be underestimated. Oh! Zhu Yun also smiled and said, I wonder, what kind of reputation does Mr. Gao have? Senior Tianzhenzi is a master of formations in the Peeper realm. Although he has many disciples, there is only one disciple in the inner sect, Gao Daiyu. Presumably, Gao Daiyu has also learned the true inheritance of formations from Senior Tianzhenzi. It's a pity that I heard that Tianzhenzi Senior died in the Fire Dragon sect. As he spoke, he sighed hypocritically, looking extremely regretful. Do you know a lot about fellow Daoist Pei? Zhu Yun was also a little surprised. The death of the leader of a sect was a big or small matter. But obviously, Pei Wei dared to force the two brothers and sisters to break the formation, which showed another point, that is, the Tianzhen sect has declined. When such news comes out of Pei Wei's mouth, either Pei Wei's status is extraordinary, or Tianzhen's death has been known to most Peeper realm monks. But no matter which aspect it is, Pei Wei's temptation is already very obvious. Fellow Daoist Gao, it doesn't matter how much Pei knows. What's important is, if friend Gao doesn't help your female companion from the Fire Dragon sect, I'm afraid she will be suppressed by Leng Rushuan. Upon hearing this, Zhu Yun suddenly turned around and looked at Meng Wei. Sure enough, Meng Wei seemed to have been suppressed by Leng Rushuan in just the moment he spoke. His pupils shrank, but there was a strong wind behind him. Pei Wei takes action. Court death. Zhu Yun shouted coldly, and without hesitation, he slapped it with one palm. The chaos seed in the body instantly burst out with huge power, and the palm power came in an instant. Chaos palm. Bang. With a muffled sound, Zuyun felt as if he had been hit by a giant mountain made of fine iron, and his palms were so shaken that they became extremely numb. Taking a closer look, it turned out that he had blasted away Pei Wei's magic weapon. But Zuyun has no intention of fighting with Pei Wei. In comparison, Meng Wei's situation is more critical at this time. What kind of method is this? Pei Wei was also shocked by Zuyun's palm. Isn't the Tianzhen sect only good at formations? He originally thought that Zuyun's attack, no matter how powerful he was, would just wave his hands into a formation, but before that, there would be a time lag for his magic weapon to attack. Unexpectedly, Zuyun withstood his attack with this palm. He was stunned for a moment, but Zuyun's figure suddenly disappeared in front of his eyes. When he appeared again, he was already standing beside Meng Wei. At this time, Meng Wei, because she was unable to use fire spells, and the sky fire dragon that coexisted with her spiritual fire was overconsumed, could not even exert 1/10 of its original power. Even with the addition of the fire dragon staff, it only accounted for the initial power. By seizing the opportunity, they gained a slight upper hand. But as time passed, he was quickly suppressed by Leng Rushuan. This is the proud son of the Suanji section. There are only a handful of people at the Peeper realm who can defeat her at the same level, not to mention that Meng Wei has just broken through to the late stage of forming pills. Even Zuyun's appearance was not taken seriously by her. Is there another one to die? Leng Rushuan sneered, and with a dance of her hands, countless ice cones flying towards Meng Wei instantly changed their direction and attacked Zuyun. Snort. Zuyun snorted coldly and also raised his hand. Li Huo turns into a dragon. A pillar of fire appeared and split into 5 instantly. The 5 fire dragons immediately met the dense ice cones. This fire power is so strong. Leng Rushuan was a little surprised, her beautiful eyes flashed, and she immediately took a few steps back. Meng Wei's fire power was particularly obvious, but Zuyun had no distinguishable attributes at all, and the fire power he used was even stronger than Meng Wei's. How could she know that Zuyun's best spell was the fire curse? This was something he had practiced since the Qi refining period, and after arriving in Chuzhu, he had practiced it to perfection. However, with Pei Wei watching him closely, Zuyun did not use his full strength. What he chose was to use the pure fire power in the fire spirit pearl. Ang! 5 dragon roars merged into one, and the huge fire power instantly turned the ice cone in front of him into a pool of water droplets. But before these water droplets fell to the ground, they condensed into ice sand again, sweeping towards Zuyun from bottom to top, and it seemed that they were going to wrap Zuyun's whole body. Zuyun, be careful. Meng Wei was not far away, and as an outsider, he could see it very clearly, and immediately reminded him in a delicate voice. But how could she know that Zuyun was no longer the same as before, and his strength was far beyond Meng Wei's imagination? Just a little trick, how can I defeat her? After saying that, Zuyun's heart moved, and a blue light flashed in his lower abdomen. Just now, he was the center of the fire power, and the fire spirit power was surging, but in the blink of an eye, it was full of water spirit power. A series of blue water columns appeared out of thin air, protecting Zuyun's body. Ice is also made of water, and even these ice sands were directly absorbed by the water after being blocked by the water flow, and could not get close to Zuyun's body at all. Zuyun didn't even use magic to break this sudden sneak attack. Leng Rushuan said in shock, water and fire dual spiritual roots? No, it's impossible. As the saying goes, water and fire don't coexist. How can water and fire dual spiritual roots cultivate such pure water spirit power and fire spirit power? When Zuyun just used the fire spell, both Leng Rushuan and Pei Wei, who was not far away, guessed from the pure fire spirit power that Zuyun was also a cultivator with a single fire spirit root. Pei Wei even thought that Zuyun's identity was also a disguise, and he was mistaken for a disciple of the Fire Dragon sect. But after Zuyun used the water spiritual power, he was also stunned. Water and fire are incompatible, this is common sense. For cultivators with such spiritual roots, unless they give up the cultivation of one attribute, the higher the realm, the easier it is to go astray during cultivation. But the Zuyun in front of him. You can cultivate the dual spiritual roots of water and fire to the late stage of Den formation, which shows that you have a strong control over spiritual power. But, if you use water in front of me, Leng Rushuan, you are wrong. Leng Rushuan reacted very quickly. When Zuyun used water to block her ice sand, she immediately controlled the magic formula. While the temperature around her dropped sharply, she actually took away Zuyun's control over these water spiritual powers. In just a breath of time, these water columns turned into ice columns. You are trapped in your own cocoon. With Leng Rushuan's sarcastic voice, all the ice columns shattered at the same time, and more ice sand rolled towards Zuyun. This time, because it was transformed from a water column, it was even closer. In the blink of an eye, Zuyun was covered by these ice sands and became an ice sculpture. Zuyun. On the side, Meng Wei screamed in shock, not caring about his almost exhausted spiritual power, and condensed all of it, trying to melt the ice sculpture. However, Leng Rushuan waved her hand lightly, and an iceberg appeared out of thin air, smashing Meng Wei down heavily, and pressing him to the ground. Fairy Leng, what a good trick! At this time, Pei Wei clapped his hands, and walked towards the side with strange eyes. Bullying too late Jindan is also a trick. But you, Pei Wei, what are you doing with me? Ha ha ha, Fairy Leng, keep away from strangers like this, aren't you afraid that I will go out and tell your master? Do you think you have a chance to go out? As soon as the voice fell, Leng Rushuan also slammed towards Pei Wei. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 639. Fairy Leng, you and I are at the same level, and we peak at the same time in the late stage of pill formation. Even though you have a mutated ice spirit root, how can Pei be an ordinary person? Facing Leng Rushuan's attack, Pei Wei handled it with ease. That strange-shaped magic weapon was controlled like an arm in his hand, and the ice spiritual power that could freeze Zuyun couldn't get close to him at all. You Haoshan sect are really arrogant. Pei Wei, I have wanted to kill you for a long time. Let's compete today. Leng Rushuan shouted sweetly, and the sky and the earth were suddenly filled with ice and snow, which was several times more powerful than Sun Qinyang's at that time. Even Meng Wei, who was struggling to hold on under the iceberg, was affected by the low temperature, and frost instantly formed on his eyebrows. She originally wanted the Sky Fire Dragon to come out and help Zuyun melt the ice sculpture, but at this time, she couldn't protect herself, and the Sky Fire Dragon didn't dare to take the risk. If he was too weak at this time, if he came out, he would be frozen into ice. Even though he had fought fiercely all night with the Lord of Beiwa City who was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage, the characteristics of the spiritual fire had created his current predicament. Even if it is sky fire, if the fire power in the body is insufficient, it will be controlled by monks with lower realms. Zuyundu knew this very well. Fen Tianyan is also in the same situation. But at this time, he was originally anxious because of being frozen, but he calmed down after Pei Wei fought with Leng Rushuan. Taking a closer look, he realized that although Meng Wei was in a coma, he was supported by the Sky Fire Dragon, so his life was safe for the time being. If I go out suddenly, these two people are very likely to join forces. I used fire spells. I think someone like Pei Wei can guess that I am not from the Tianzhen sect. Such a large group of high-ranking disciples can see the situation extremely clearly and will not be easily provoked by my words. In this case, we can only wait until they both lose. It's just Mengwei, I hope you can hold on a little longer. Zhu Yun could not turn his head, and even his spiritual consciousness was affected and could not be released. He could only sense it through his slightly superior soul strength. But just when he withdrew his attention from Mengwei, the water spirit beads in his lower abdomen and kidneys suddenly received a burst of ice power. No, this ice spiritual power can actually penetrate into my body. Zhu Yun was shocked. He had not mastered the ice spirit power. Otherwise, he would not have needed the ice spirit grass to draw the ice tornado talisman at that time. So much so that when he found the ice spirit grass in Wuchideo's ring, he had no use for it. If all this ice spiritual power enters his 9 meridians, I am afraid that his internal organs will be inevitably damaged. This is the peak power of the late stage of pill formation. No matter how strong Zhu Yun is, it is only reflected in his sudden burst of attack power that he can kill nascent soul. But it doesn't mean that his body can withstand spiritual power at a level slightly higher than his own. Zhu Yun didn't think much about it. His first reaction was to use the power of chaos to resolve it. With the thought in his mind, he drove the chaos seed crazily. But something unexpected happened. Zhu Yun was horrified to find that the ice spiritual power flowing into his kidneys was faster. At this moment, the chaos seed was actually turning in the opposite direction. It is actually absorbing ice spiritual power. Zhu Yun was stunned and didn't know how to deal with it. A feeling of death quietly emerged in his heart. At the kidneys, the water spirit pearl exudes azure light, but it has no intention of protecting the Lord. It allows the ice power to start from here, follow the 9 meridians, and slowly spread to all parts of the body. Gradually, the body seemed to be frozen. Time seems to be frozen. My thoughts seem to be frozen. I don't know how long it took. Zhu Yun's whole body revealed the power of extreme ice, and seemed to be integrated with the ice sculpture that wrapped him. Within the body, Zhu Yun was surprised to find that he was not affected in any way. No, the impact is still there. His whole body was cold, or in other words, all the ice spiritual power was slowly swimming around in his body. Strange, how could I? Zhu Yun's heart skipped a beat, but as if he suddenly remembered something, he cast his inward gaze on the chaos seed. The scene he saw made him unable to recover for a long time. Just because the power within the chaos species is still the power of chaos. But what came out of the chaos seed was ice spiritual power. Am I capable of ice spiritual power? When Zhu Yun's face was full of disbelief, the water spirit beads in his kidneys suddenly bloomed with blue light, lighting up his entire body. Everywhere you look, everything is the same color. Ice spiritual power, ice spiritual power. Ice is condensed from water, and water is the source of ice. Ice is water, and water is ice, so ice spiritual power is actually water spiritual power. In an instant, Zhu Yun realized. The water spirit bead is the most precious treasure of the water system. Since the ice spiritual power belongs to the water spiritual power, it will naturally be affected by the water spiritual pearl. The water spirit pearl is one of the 5 series of treasures. How could it not protect its owner? Zhu Yun couldn't help laughing while inside his body. Moreover, he also thought of a deeper level. Most of the ice and sand that froze me into an ice sculpture were formed by the water spiritual power released from my water spirit bead. Even if Leng Rushuan temporarily snatches control, in the end, this still belongs to my water spiritual power. I wish Yun can understand his thoughts, and his heart can be like a clear mirror. No matter how strong Leng Rushuan is, I have a water-type treasure in my body. You are using my spiritual power to hurt me. What a wishful thinking. I didn't expect it to be a blessing in disguise, allowing me to control ice spiritual power. From now on, You don't need to take Ice Spirit Grass to draw the Ice Tornado Talisman so that your body can temporarily gain Ice spiritual power. However, we will talk about drawing the talisman later. Let's see how far they fight. Zuyun returned his consciousness to his body and looked straight ahead through the ice covering his body. I saw that Leng Rushuan and Pei Wei were still fighting together, and no one could do anything to the other. At this time, the ice sculpture could no longer pose any threat to Zuyun. He did not hesitate and used the void-breaking spiritual eye technique. He immediately saw that Leng Rushuan actually had a slight advantage. She used extremely low temperatures to create a world of ice and snow here, as if it were her home court, with the right time and location. Pei Wei, on the other hand, relied on the power of the magic weapon to be able to compete with Leng Rushuan, but the movement of his body was still somewhat affected. It seems they are going to fight for a while longer. With a thought, Zuyun melted the inner layer of the ice sculpture a little, and then turned to look at Mengwei. It doesn't matter if you don't look at it, but when you look at it, you find that the thick snow under your feet actually buries Mengwei in the snow. Moreover, her breathing gradually became weaker. No, I can't take care of them anymore. If I wait any longer, I'm afraid Mengwei will freeze to death in his sleep. Zuyun was anxious, and with the thought, the chaos seed was controlled by him again, and the ice spiritual power slowly swimming in his body instantly turned into fire spiritual power. Boom! The ice sculpture made a loud noise, and the exploding ice shards flew in all directions. Zuyun flew away, with the extremely pure fire spirit power transformed by the power of chaos condensed in his hands. Give it to me! He shouted angrily and slapped it directly on the iceberg. This time, the fire spirit power in the fire spirit bead was not used. It was as powerful as a nascent soul blow. The iceberg melted rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye, turning into puddles of ice water, flowing downwards. Zuyun's sudden outburst also alarmed the two people in the fight. Pei Wei and Leng Rushuan stopped at the same moment and looked towards Zuyun. The eyes of the two of them were full of horror. The boy's palm. Pei Wei suddenly remembered the scene when he threw a magic weapon at Zuyun, but the magic weapon was smashed away, and he couldn't help but shudder. Leng Rushuan even exclaimed, "My iceberg has used 30% of my spiritual power." Leng Rushuan, if this kid doesn't die, I'm afraid it's us who will die later. Okay, let's join forces to kill him first, and then you and I will compete. Almost at the same time, the two men moved and each made a suicide move, attacking Zuyun's back. Just in time, let me test my ice spiritual power on you. Zuyun didn't look back at all. He put his palm on the iceberg, his steps unmoving, but his upper body twisted slightly, and he shot with his left hand. Thanks to the fact that Zuyun had used all his soul power to practice the control of spiritual power at that time, it was not difficult for Zuyun to control only two kinds of spiritual power. A thick ice wall suddenly appeared between the three of them. Boom! Boom! Leng Rushuan and Pei Wei hit the ice wall hard. At the same time as the loud noise, ice chips flew across and the ice wall shook, but it failed to move forward. You two are at the peak stage of forming pills, don't say that I bully you. Zuyun's voice came from the other side of the ice wall. The two of them suddenly felt insulted, and their blood surged. They can be said to be the two strongest people who have entered the secret realm of the heavenly book. Not only are they unable to defeat a late-stage pill formation, but they are even looked down upon by him. Ice and snow. Before they could take action in anger, Zuyun spit out 4 words lightly on this side. Leng Rushuan was horrified to find that she actually felt cold. I started my cultivation by picking up the immortal skills. Author, Banzuan Xianxia. Chapter 640. It wasn't the first time Zuyun used ice spiritual power, but it was the first time he used ice spiritual power to attack. The so-called ice and snow is not Jian Tianming's method back then, but he converted all the water spiritual power in the water spirit beads into ice spiritual power for a full-scale attack. Only in this way can he deal with Leng Rushuan and Pei Wei at the same time. In terms of realm, the two are even better. In terms of combat power, these two people are also better than the ordinary late-stage pill formation peaks. Zhu Yun doesn't dare to take risks. He needs to deal with the two of them as soon as possible to save Meng Wei. Run. Pei Wei's teeth were chattering due to the cold. He made a quick decision, knowing that he would definitely die if he went head-on, so he turned around and ran towards the way he came, not daring to stay here for a moment longer. The same goes for Leng Rushuan. As famous geniuses in the Peepa realm, they also have a strong sense of danger. Let you run away for a while first, and I will settle the score with you later. Zhu Yun watched the two people leave until they disappeared from sight, then he concentrated on placing his hands on the iceberg to help Meng Wei resolve the crisis at this time. After a while, the iceberg finally melted. But Meng Wei didn't wake up, and he was all wet. He didn't know whether he was soaked in ice water, or whether he was sweating from Zhu Yun's high temperature. But fortunately, Meng Wei's breathing began to become stronger, and Zhu Yun also let out a sigh of relief. Looking around, no one came. He took out some more spiritual stones and threw them beside him. He set up the 9-turn-9 yang formation and planned to wait for Meng Wei to wake up. At the same time, he thought about whether to ignore Leng Rushuan and the other for the time being. As for Pei Wei, it's better to wait for Meng Wei to get better before pursuing him. Meanwhile, in the distance, Zhong Jiangjie walked forward slowly, and suddenly saw a familiar figure. He had no intention of colliding with the person, but he did not expect that the person was walking straight towards him. He quickly hid behind an ancient tree and put away his spiritual aura. This wait is half an hour. And when he could see people clearly, he couldn't help but feel happy. Junior sister Meng, I didn't expect to meet you here. Zhong Jiangjie suddenly jumped out from behind the tree, startling Lian Nishang. Lian Nishang looked at Zhong Jiangjie in front of her and almost screamed, but she suddenly realized that she used the heaven-changing talisman and disguised herself as Meng Wei. And Zhong Jiangjie obviously didn't recognize him. However, judging from his appearance, how could he know Meng Wei? Lian Nishang was not afraid, but suddenly thought that she could use this identity to find an opportunity to kill Zhong Jiangjie. Why are you here? Lian Nishang put away the hostility in her heart and said with a smile on her face. Zhong Jiangjie really didn't expect that Meng Wei in front of him was actually refining neon clothes. He also said with a smile, after I come in, I plan to find you. However, many monks rushed over due to the strange phenomenon. Not only did I see Pei Wei, but I also saw Leng Rushuan, so I planned to touch her quietly. I'm worried about you. Lian Nishang was greatly shocked. Didn't Zhu Yun say that Meng Wei was a friend he had known in Yunzhou? How will he enter the secret realm of the Book of Heaven with Zhong Jiangjie? With such doubts, Lian Nishang raised his heart in his throat, fearing that Zhong Jiangjie would find out if he was not careful. However, it was not that she was afraid of Zhong Jiangjie, but that Lian Nishang was afraid of losing the best opportunity to kill Zhong Jiangjie. As a result, the two of them talked about each other, and Lian Nishang tried his best to avoid talking about Meng Wei. At this point, the two of them turned around and walked towards another place. Zhu Yun, you saved my life again. Meng Wei woke up, looked at Zhu Yun sitting beside him, and said quietly. Zhu Yun curled his lips and said, Master Meng, this is not the Yaesu where you can run wild. This is the Peepa realm where even the ancestor of Yuanying appears. Even in the secret realm of the Book of Heaven, the Yuanying stage cannot come in, but those who can come are the geniuses from the entire Peepa realm and below the nascent soul stage. There were still some things he didn't say directly because he couldn't bear to blame Meng Wei. In other words, he took some of the reasons on himself. After all, he still overestimated his own strength, which was not enough to completely protect Mengwei. Otherwise, he would never have stopped and allowed Mengwei to try the realm he had just broken through, and the realm he had just acquired. Fire Dragon Staff. Careless. However, it was a blessing in disguise. Unexpectedly, the battle with Leng Rushuan would lead to him understanding the use of ice spiritual power. I understand. Mengwei also felt a little aggrieved and said, "This is indeed because I am a bit arrogant." You are right, this is the Peepa realm, not the Ya realm, and the difference in strength is not just a tiny bit. It's good that you know, Zuyun said with a smile, but next, I will get you some talismans to defend yourself. If you encounter a strong opponent again, you can use the talismans. Talisman. Mengwei immediately smiled and said, "Is it still those fireball talismans of yours? Are you kidding me? My ability to draw talismans has not fallen short." Zuyun showed dissatisfaction and took out all the materials for drawing high-level talismans. And what he planned to draw was the Ice Tornado talisman. Using the ground as a table, Zuyun drew several Ice Tornado talismans while half-bent, and then transformed the chaos power into ice spiritual power and charged it into the talismans. After all, it was the second-level talisman in the fragment of Tianfu, and Zuyun also took a lot of time to create it. According to past experience, no one can carry the ice tornado in the secret realm of the Book of Heaven. His chaotic power is transformed into corresponding spiritual power, which can increase the attack level of the talisman, comparable to a nascent soul attack. In the secret realm of the heavenly book, there is no nascent soul stage. Zuyun took 3 ice tornado talismans and slapped them on Mengwei's hand, saying, "If you encounter a strong opponent again, just use the talismans to slap him." "What are you?" Mengwei blinked her eyes. In her opinion, the complicated talisman patterns on it were twisted and crisscrossed, and there was no way to tell what they were. Her knowledge of Zuyun's talismans was still at the level of elementary talismans. "This is the Ice Tornado talisman, which is comparable to the Nascent Soul's attack," Zuyun said confidently. "Nascent Soul strikes." Suddenly, Mengwei screamed, it was almost unbelievable. "That's right, next time someone uses your realm to bully you, you'll hit him with the talisman until he doesn't even recognize him," Zuyun said with a smile. "It's not that exaggerated, right? In the secret realm of the heavenly book, there is no nascent soul stage." Mengwei carefully put the 3-length ice tornado talisman close to his body. He seemed to say it unintentionally, but he suddenly reminded Zuyun. "Zhongjiangjie wants to break through to the nascent soul stage in the secret realm. And his goal is to refine Nishang. We should go." Thinking that Lian Nishang was still missing, and that when Mengwei broke through before, he had never seen Zhongjiangjie outside the 2 formations, an unpleasant feeling suddenly emerged in his heart. "Are you going to take revenge on those 2 people?" This time, Mengwei was extremely excited. She was like Xiajiabiu in front of Zuyun, but deep down, she was still the evil young palace master who was determined to take revenge. "No, let's not take revenge first. I'm going to find Lian Nishang. I always feel that she will be in danger." Zuyun withdrew the 9 turns and 9 suns formation, and then took out a transmission talisman from his arms. "Lian Nishang? What danger is she in? Didn't you say that she is also at the peak of the late stage of pill formation? Moreover, she still has a single fire root. As long as she doesn't cause trouble, no one will mess with her, right?" Mengwei felt a sour taste in his heart when he heard Lian Nishang's name. Not to mention, Zuyun also said that he would take her to find Lian Nishang. "No, you don't know." Zuyun shook his head and said in a deep voice, "Zhongjiangjie wants to break through the nascent soul stage within the secret realm of the Book of Heaven, and the most critical place is to refine the neon clothes. So, when you broke through before, you caused the strange phenomena in the world, attracted so many monks, but Zhongjiangjie was the only one missing. Although he may not have seen it, if he saw it and did not come, it is enough to show that he is sensible about priorities. You have to know that if there is nascent soul here, then the secret realm of the Book of Heaven is probably his alone. Meng Wei disagreed and said, so what if he has broken through the nascent soul stage? Didn't you say that with this ice tornado talisman, you can shoot it at anyone who gets upset? This is a blow comparable to that of the nascent soul. And Zhong Jiang Ao brought me here, so I have plenty of opportunities to attack. Hearing this, a flash of light suddenly flashed in Zhu Yun's mind, and he said, Wei, Zhong Jiang Jao can't bring you, who is still in the middle stage of pill formation, to the secret realm of the Book of Heaven for no reason. From this point of view, when I was refining Nishang and was taken from the fire dragon by me, after Zone was brought out, he changed his target, to you. Zhu Yun broke out in cold sweat as he spoke. You know, Lian Nishang has also transformed into Meng Wei. If Zhong Jiang Jao comes across it, I'm afraid. No, let's leave quickly. Zhu Yun prepared for the worst, and while putting away the transmission talisman, he quickly took out a tracking talisman. With a little spiritual power, the tracking talisman turned into a golden light and floated into the air, then flew quickly towards the due north. He didn't give Meng Wei a chance to speak at all. He reached out to grab the other person's hand and launched the shuttle.